Let's start this bulletin with our top focus this hour, something that the entire state of Karnataka will be discussing tomorrow. The political discourse in Karnataka has been heated of late, and it is all set to conclude tomorrow when the last 14 Lok Sabha seats which are pending head to polls. Talking of heat, as Karnataka braces itself for the upcoming Lok Sabha elections, the state has also been grappling with a multitude of challenges. From scorching heat waves to drying lake beds, the environmental and also the infrastructural issues plaguing the state have continued to take a center stage. The recent rainfall in Bengaluru, though a temporary relief, has only brought light to the alarming reality of vanishing water bodies in the IT capital. In fact, a new report has now revealed that nearly 125 of the city's 800 lakes have all dried up, and 25 more are heading in the same direction. And in fact, it's not just Bengaluru, but the entire state of Karnataka that's grappling with this issue. In fact, the Karnataka government earlier this year had declared 216 of the 236 taluks in the state as drought hit. The centre and the state have constantly been in a tussle over the drought relief, a key factor which will influence voters if they turn up tomorrow despite the heat wave. What's ironic is the fact that heat wave is also set to impact polling in constituencies where voters will turn up keeping drought as a major issue in mind. In fact, the effect of the heat wave on voter turnout has already been evident. The second phase of the Lok Sabha election saw nearly half of Bengaluru's voters abstain from casting their ballots. Voter apathy in Bengaluru is a known factor, but this time it was aggravated. It was much more, and that was attributed to the scorching heat. Now, this, of course, is something that voters are talking about. They're talking about scorching summer, which is acting as a deterrent for voters to turn out outside polling booths. In fact, the Election Commission is also taking various measures to ensure that voter apathy doesn't repeat, especially in drought-hit regions where people will be casting their ballot. But will this work out? Will this strategy actually pay? That's a big, big question. And again, Karnataka has been one of those states which has been battling drought, which has been battling heat wave, and several such issues that have come to the fore. Even a city like Bengaluru, which usually sees rains, incessant rains during this time of the year, right now is waiting for rains to come. And this again is an issue which is not just limited to Bengaluru, but also across polling booths, which will be going out to vote tomorrow. We'll of course discuss this in detail with a panel of our guests today, but before that, my colleague Neha joins us on the broadcast to get us more information on this. Neha, a lot of factors that will play a crucial factor in the Karnataka elections. The last Lok Sabha seats, the last 14 seats which will be voting tomorrow, it's not just about the other factors like development, infrastructure. It's also the heat wave that will come into picture. It's also the drought that will come into picture. It's also the drought relief that the center and the state have been fighting over. Help us understand how much of a voter apathy can we attribute to the heat wave condition? Also, what exactly is the Election Commission doing to ensure that voters turn up at the polling booth?
Well, Ashish, yes, of course, if we are to talk about, we'll take this step by step very quickly. While the Election Commission, of course, has been dealing with a heat wave across the country, not just in the state of Karnataka, there are, of course, some generalized measures that they're ensuring, as far as people are concerned. Of course, we've already seen advisories there being put out already, people being urged to come out and vote, of course, and take care of their health, even as they're coming out in the heat wave. But, of course, if we are to talk about the drought, you mentioned earlier that, the center-state fight has only gone on to worsen as far as the drought relief funds are concerned. Remember, it was, just a couple of months ago that we saw the state government announcing formally that, there are several districts, over 200 districts that have been drought affected in the state of Karnataka. And since then, unfortunate as it is, it's just been a political war of words between the state and the centre over the drought relief funds that haven't been released state. Well, of course, this is going to be something that's going to be having a massive impact on the voters here who go out to vote today. It's not just going to be the communal issues. It's not just going to be the guarantees of the Congress party. It's not just going to be, the development on ground. But the fact is that, the farming community has been angry for quite some time now. The fact that, it's not just their crop that's faced losses, but even the lack of rain, of course, in the state of Karnataka that's gone on to worsen the drought conditions given the heat wave is something, of course, that's going to be of key importance over here. Even as people step out to vote, we'll of course really have to keep an eye and see how the voting percentage or the voter turnout is going to be, given the fact that the IMD has predicted temperatures going up to almost as high as 46 degrees in Kalaburgi till May 9th.
Right, Neha, like you rightly pointed out there, on one hand, we're talking about the heat wave and drought and also a lot of political heat as well in the state of Karnataka. Appreciate you joining us on the broadcast there with all those details. In fact, we're discussing this issue with our panelists today. Joining us on the broadcast is Ram Prasad V, who's the co-founder and convener of Friends of Lakes, Lakshmi Narayan, who's a former chairman of the BBMP, Priya Chetty Rajgopal, who's the managing partner at Multiversal Advisory. Also, Sandeep Anirudhan joins us, who's the founder of Citizens Agenda for Bengaluru. I appreciate you all for joining us on the broadcast. This is a very important discussion and something that I don't think a lot of people are actually even considering as a factor, because we're talking about heat wave here. Heat wave usually isn't even considered a factor in elections. Priya Chetty Rajgopal, let me start with you. Let's take a look at the Bengaluru's voting percentage, because this has significantly, it usually is something that is very, very worrisome, but this time it has dropped even further. And one of the major factors for that has been the heat wave. So at the end of the day, while it might not seem like a major factor, the drop in voting percentage will dictate how the election results turn out. So again, at the end of the day, it's a major, major factor.
Also would like to stress both Bangalore and Karnataka is very, very sensitive to, to rising temperatures. We are a state and city which is spoilt by wonderful weather, and certainly we take that as our, as our right. But kidding aside, we are sitting right now, and I could see Neha under an umbrella, probably under some very, very much anticipated rain. Though the heat wave is a critical part of the voting turnout, and we do know that on the 26th, when the voting happened in Bangalore, there was a much lower turnout than was expected. But I'd like to address that and put that in perspective, because it also affects the voting that is going to happen tomorrow. The baseline, as far as the voting is concerned, is definitely off. And I can say, if I would like to extrapolate from Bangalore, being particularly a city and therefore with far more dynamics in terms of a moving population, the baseline has been off even in the last elections and the assembly elections. So you're looking at a number which is not entirely valid. So when you say 53% or 52%, I'm not too sure whether it reflects the entirety of those people who have voted. Point two, the two categories which have been the most affected, and even the previous surveys have shown, it is the youth voters. So that would be below 30, the 18 to 30. And the second category is the migrant population, which are people who have perhaps their voter slips here but belong to another city, or have migrated here for the last, say, maybe 10, 15 years. It is these two catchments which are probably the most the most dynamic, which is affecting the the voter turnout.
Right.
And therefore, this coupled with some amount of general apathy, the heat wave, does result in lower numbers. I would also like to tell you that the updates have been done. And for example, I know that when my dear father passed away last year, we immediately updated the BBMP and the electoral roll, but I still find his name and number here in these elections. So there is a certain turnaround time which is required. On the positive side, I can see that the attempts made by the Central Electorate Commission has been very high. They've been trying to energize the young voters by reaching out to them. There are better facilities at the voting centers. But I must say that this time around, I found a lesser number of officers, a lesser number of facilities. But the attempts to reach and the attempts to kind of bring more
of
people
course,
to the
the
voting
attempts
booth.
being made by the Election Commission, I'll of course come back to you on that. Also, Ram Prasad, I'll ask you a follow-up question on that, because one of the reports that we were looking at today is the fact that 125 out of the 800 lakes in Bengaluru urban districts and the BBMP have all dried up. In fact, 25 more lakes are on the verge of drying up. One of the major issues that the Congress or whatever government is in power in Karnataka talks about is the urban apathy. the fact that there's a civic apathy in Bengaluru, lakes are important, drinking water facility, because Bengaluru is a city where water comes at least 100 kilometers away from Kaveri. And the other option is the borewell, which are also drying up. So how much of this is going to be a major factor? Because Bengaluru has already voted. But again, these are issues that percolate and come down to the constituencies which are voting, which are also drought hit. So how much do you think this is going to play a factor in the elections?
So if you see the ones which are going to vote now, Bangalore has already voted, and this was expected out of Bangalore because that's what we have been seeing in the past years. That Bangalore's if it even touches 55%, 60% voter turnout, that itself was being celebrated over here. There are a lot of things. Priya had already told you few things, and even now I see my brother who is moved away from here, but still he is in the list. So he will always be counted here. And my father, who passed away 4 years back, still now he's still getting it in spite of registering, doing all those things also. So all this the kind of things needs to be moved out. I don't know how are we going to pressurize this kind of things to be moved out, so that we don't keep on showing Bangalore in a very bad light because of somebody else's mistakes, or it can be easy a mistake. I don't mind about telling all those things, but because of their mistakes, I don't want my city to be always be told your lowest turnout and other things, because many of them are not even here, first of all, and many are dead and gone also. So with taking that into account, I don't know how many percentage it is, not really gone into all those kind of things. But this needs very serious looking if you want to look at what the percentages talk about. Because in a city, people move in, people move out, those things. It is not like a village or a small town where people stay on there only and they are there. Here, the movements are too much. People move from one constituency to another constituency, and again your name is not to be seen, or you are moving, but you are supposed to come from that constituency back to here. And it is in Bangalore, it's a long travel. All those things could have been playing a role. But let me come down to whatever we call it as the Bangalore city. However, I want to correct you one thing, that Bangalore city, including urban, we don't have 800 lakes. That was once upon a time, 500 years back, it was 1,000 lakes we used to call it as. But whatever the latest records we have with BBMP, it is supposed to be around 210 lakes. And with the Bangalore urban area, what we call as BMRD area, they should be having around 310 lakes. So it is around 500 is something the number comes to kind of officially from these things. So that one also includes very, very small lakes. Now, taking into account whether water issue for Bangalore city has been a very big issue. Yes, in some pockets, not in all the pockets, but in some pockets, it has just been a very big issue. But at the same time, wherever they were getting Kaveri water and other things and all, it has not been an issue. Whether the area which was not getting water, what was the turnout percentage? Yes, it has been pretty low. And that is because either they are not from, they have not yet changed their distinct to Bangalore, or whatever it is, because those areas have not voted that much. So let me tell you one thing. When your voter turnout is not so big from that area, and you have seen election after election, why will a politician bother about even listening to them? So that is another thing that we are seeing, that when you don't see that there is no voter turnout, so this, people have to understand, if they don't turn up, end of the day, it is hitting them only. So they have to turn up, and the areas which were, making a big, means we are having a trouble and other things with regarding to water, their turnout has been pretty low. And that means they need to really look at why the turnout has been low and other things. That is, if that is on one side. And on the other side, whether water sustainability of Bengaluru city from after the biggest drought, that is 1894 and 97 droughts, after which 1934 we bought water from Esargatta. That time, the population of Bengaluru was just 2 lakh population. And we had to bring water from Esargatta to feed the people of Bengaluru.
We'll of course,
at the same time,
talk about the measures that are to be taken, but let's also talk about the rural areas. Now, the constituency which are going to vote, drought is a major issue that everyone's talking about.
It is not a major issue
has been a major point of tussle between the center and the center.
No,
I'll take this point across to Sandeep Aniruddha now. I'll take this point across to Sandeep Aniruddha now. Sandeep, help us understand how much of a factor is this going to be, because drought is an issue that the state government has been talking about time and again. We've seen the clashes on the streets as well as far as Kaveri water is concerned. And once again, these are the regions that are now also being hit by heat waves. So do you really think that will also affect as far as the voting percentage is concerned, or do you think the drought issue is so major that despite the heat wave, the citizens will still come out and vote in large numbers?
See, this phase of elections is going to be largely in the most badly affected drought areas, which is North Karnataka. They are almost desert-like conditions. I mean, after Rajasthan, I think it is North Karnataka, which is the second most arid area. Earlier, it used to be Andhra Pradesh, but Andhra Pradesh has been taking corrective steps, so it's improved a little bit there. So, largely, why are droughts so bad here? Well, last year we had a drought. This year it's repeating. So neither did the government do anything last year, nor has it got its act together this year. Predominantly, the problem with the entire state of Karnataka is lack of planning and lack of governance. And the problem with people is they are disillusioned because a government which has to do this for them, which they entrust this role of planning and governance to, never fulfills its duty. Therefore, we've had decades of misgovernance, decades of poor planning, decades of taking people for granted, and our habitat is completely destroyed. And the problem is the conversations that are happening. If you look at the conversations that are happening around this election, what is it about? It's largely about polarization and some personal attacks. Then you've had the sex scandal. These are the only conversations that are going around. But right now, people are facing an existential crisis. The climate crisis is getting worse year on year. The warnings were there on the wall earlier. Governments did nothing to bring about sustainable policies, to improve the habitat, to find climate change solutions. We've done nothing. Except for some announcements, we've done nothing. No sustainability development goals, no sustainability development action, nothing. So the problem is at the political class level
Absolutely.
and at people's level, there is no conversation about saving our lives because our lives are actually at risk now. Temperatures are going through the roof. We've had the highest temperatures. The drought situation this year is one of the worst ever. And yet, we are not having a discussion about this. This shows that either the electorate have no
Absolutely.
hope
Sandeep,
in
that's
our
a good
politics.
point. The fact that we're not even having a discussion about it, and the fact that people of Bengaluru that complain the most about it have not even turned up and voted, that really shows the voter apathy. While we talk about voter apathy, we should also talk about what the authorities are doing. Bhavreen Kandhari, help me understand, if the election commission, all the steps that they've taken, do you really think these are enough to ensure that people battle the heat wave and come on and vote? Because the temperatures are soaring, the water crisis continues to loom, and Karnataka is, of course, one of the worst affected with all this. Do you think the election commission and the authorities in charge are doing enough? Are they showing enough enthusiasm to ensure that the voter turnout remains high?
Just giving out advisories, whether it's during election or post or pre-elections, is not just enough. The fact that the elections were planned also by the government in these particular months shows the real, denial that that absolutely they're living in, and it's something that's not in priority, whether it's climate change or heat waves or now air pollution. They're of course made it to the manifestos with lot of push and pull and whatever on the last pages, but none of them really have brought it into if you say that you're doing anything in letter and spirit, something like Sandeep just said, that what's the point of talking or making those drafts and putting all it down in those sustainable goals, etc., writing life programs, etc., when throughout the year you're doing just the opposites. So, whether it's lakes or whether it's water table in Delhi also, I mean, we're talking of Bengaluru, but it's all over India. I mean, in Delhi, it's a metro which has pretty much, destroyed the water table of Delhi and many other cities also. But still, they are considered the holy cow. The trees, I mean, constantly citizens are fighting in every city and state, to save the biodiversity, which is again very closely connected to water and soil conservation, etc. So you cannot just say things and do things and give advisories and work, in a way that you're cutting 5 trees an hour in the most polluted city of the capital of the world, Delhi. That just doesn't make sense. We have to now kind of work our policy and the implementation in such a way that there is no other thing that comes in the way. The priority is going to be only the climate crisis, how to solve it, save lives, health. It's a public health emergency. Heat waves is not only in, talking of Bengaluru, it's pretty much the whole of the country now. It's the whole of Asia. And we'll have to really do things to, in reality, on action, basis of action on the ground, and not,
Right.
just, writing and drafts and, various policies that you make on paper. Obviously, that's not working. And as far as something that I also believe, and
Exactly,
my,
exactly. That's a good point, Bhavreen, because you're clearly saying that the election commission on paper is taking a lot of steps, but that doesn't seem to be translating in terms of voter percentages, which of course continue to be low across the Karnataka politics, and not just politics. It's not just the political heat that we're talking about. It's also the nature's fury that we're talking about. Our guest panel continues to be with us now. Priya Chetty Rajgopal. Before the break, we were talking about how there's a lot of enthusiasm that we see from politicians when it comes to canvassing, when they actually go out and campaign, and even when there's scorching heat, there's scorching summer, they still manage to garner large crowds. Whatever they do, but they do get large crowds. Why isn't the same enthusiasm shown to ensure that there are higher voting percentages, especially when there are such heat wave conditions and when issues are very important, such as drought?
So if we're going to give the responsibility to the politicians, I mean, they will certainly make sure there's a better voter turnout because it suits them. The fact is that from the voters' perspective, there is a problem with the glass half empty. So if we don't feel that there's going to be any impact of our turning up, or there is no such concept of saying, it is our right to vote and a right to be in a democracy, but it is not our duty to vote or to participate in a democracy. I think that is where the push and pull, where, people, citizens, the bureaucratic mechanism needs to get involved more. So I'm going to, the reason I put my hand up was because I take up strongly the issue of apathy. The word apathy is, I think, an important word. And voter apathy is also something that has been seen. I've given you some of the reasons why I think it has been magnified and is not entirely suitable to Bangalore because of the inflated numbers or the poor baseline. Traditionally, there has been always a larger turnout in the non-city districts, the non-urban districts of Karnataka and even elsewhere. The biggest issues with low voter turnout are in cities like Bangalore or in Hyderabad, Mumbai, Chennai, where there has been traditionally some issues also with the baseline. So that's something we need to take into account. The second thing, which as I said, the word apathy concerns me because you also mentioned the word civic apathy. I take strong exception to that because if you look at Bangalore and if you look at Karnataka in general, for Bangalore, I can certainly say that this is civically probably the most woke city in the country. This is the city which steps up for everything because they really, really care and they believe they can participate with the government and with bureaucracy to make a difference. So that is something I'd like to place on record, that I hope that is also a part of
But
what will
Priya
make a
Chetty, we
change
see
in the
people
vote.
turning up. Priya Chetty, I'll just have to interject you there. Just a small correction. You said the Bengaluru, of course, turns up in a large number, but the problem is they only turn up for marathons, they only turn up for protests, they only turn up for all of these
I never
campaigns that
said.
are there, which of course are on social media. Why are they not turning up for the polling booths? Why are they not voting? That's the problem.
Ashish, that's exactly what I pointed out. I'm sorry, I think that was misunderstood. My issue was on civic apathy not being there. As civic citizens, I think we are very, very strong. Civic issues don't always turn up as far as voters are concerned, simply because, as I said, the baseline is skewed. You do not, if you have such a large number of, say, the migrant, voter cards or the youth who are not turning up. And I appreciate that. I think a lot of youth have not turned up perhaps in the numbers that they should. So, I understand your point about, marathons and other things which are on social media. It's not true. I think Bangalore does turn up where it counts. And this is an issue of the metrics being a little off the record. Off the, off the
All right.
charts. So
All
we
right,
will see better
let me take the
results
discussion
everywhere.
back to the constituencies that are going to be voting tomorrow. Ram Prasad V, you are of course someone who works in this sphere. You obviously have a lot of experience as well. In your experience over the past few years, do you think the government has done enough to ensure that the drought hit conditions, especially the constituencies which are very prone to such conditions, the ones that severely depend on certain water bodies and certain rivers, do you think the government has done enough to ensure that they are drought prone in one way or the other? Mr. Ramprasad, you seem to be muted. Can you please unmute?
Sorry. The areas which are now going to vote for tomorrow, we do have a lot of water sharing issues. I'm not telling no for that one. Let it be the Madai issue, or let it be the Krishna River, whatever for Raichuru and Gulbarga and other areas also where we need the water sharing and other things that are yet to be in the courts, other things also. If that is one part of the story, most of this area, not now, you can see from right from Ashoka's time, this what we call it as in Kannada, we call it as Bailu Sime. Bailu Sime means which is going to be like, little bit dried area, arid area. This is Deccan Plateau, end of the day. So we need to know that this has been going on like this. So for me, let me see the water turnout tomorrow. But this areas, exactly, you don't tell Rajasthan, because of heat wave, they did not turn up, because they're used to that kind of heat. So same way tomorrow, except the Malnad area, which is the hilly areas, what we call it as, those people may have a problem with, yes, heat wave. But at the same time, this area, that is Gulbarga or the lower areas, Gulbarga, Raichur and all the Kalburgi and all these areas, they are used to this kind of heat, this thing. So let me wait till tomorrow what happens. But what we have seen before, this kind of a condition also, people have come and voted. So that is on one side. What have these people voted for? Let it be Chikkabalapur, let it be Tumkur, let it be Anekal, let it be all these people, always have voted for somebody who would give them a permanent solution for water. So these places have been voting for water for the past maybe 8, 10, 20 elections. They have been voting after every time is for water. And one of the apathy that we see from the side of the politicians is that they only think about bringing water from somewhere outside and trying to, to make everybody water slave in this state
Exactly.
or in the district of Bengaluru. But they don't think about the water sustainability, local water sustainability. That has been our this thing, that you may include a lot of things. So last time, they were, one of the speaker was telling, we have included something known as a manifesto. Environmental manifesto was given by more than 300 environmentalists from different districts of Bengaluru, written made a manifesto, told them, please include this in your manifestos as a manifesto, this thing, at least let it start coming in the manifesto with regarding to climate change, with regarding to water, with regarding to environment. And that manifesto was in the newspapers everywhere. So they know about it, not that the politicians don't know about it, but looks like when it comes to heat wave or when it comes to environment, there is a kind of this thing to keep it away. And then, just like Anuruddhan told, just take up issues which are practically they will only serve some kind of an emotional thing, but nothing to do with the real living of the people, and especially the sustainability or the local sustainability. We don't want to talk about keeping on bringing water from, tomorrow desalinated water to Bangalore, or we want to cut 8 lakh trees.
Absolutely.
That too of a 2
Absolutely.
million
This,
year
of
old
course,
ecology.
Ramprasad, your very interesting point that you're pointing out there. The fact that the politicians who these people are voting for, they're bracing heat waves, they're stepping out there and voting. The short-sightedness of the solutions that are being offered continue to spiral. And again, this is a problem that continues. Sandeep, before we wrap this discussion up, help us understand why exactly aren't we looking at long-term solutions? Because like Ramprasad pointed out there, we are always talking about how to get water from one place to other, how to ensure that we are, of course, doing something after there is a drought, after there is a heat wave. Why aren't there solutions, long-term solutions to ensure that each district, each constituency is in a way self-reliant for its water?
Ashish, it's a systemic failure. It's basically a weakness with the system. Given the quality of our politicians, what are they capable of coming up with? This is the big problem. Because, first of all, we don't have good local governance systems. So there's no good incubation of future politicians. We used to have it at one time, but now see the Panchayati Raj and 74th Amendment, that is Nagar Raj, local municipal bodies are all struggling. So good quality people are not becoming leaders. That's the problem. People with money, with vested interests are becoming politicians. They don't care about governance. They don't care about planning. Now, the third biggest problem, and these two problems are mainly the cause for voter apathy, because people have been voting again and again and again. They don't see any good outcomes from the politicians whom they vote in, and they don't see any good choice of politicians either. And then, therefore, the outcome in terms of government policies is also bad. Governance is bad. The third biggest problem is citizens have no way of influencing decision making. Like what we really require is we need the power for citizens to introduce bills in parliament, introducing bills in local legislative assemblies. Just like the UK, if a person wishes to introduce a bill, they just have to form a petition, and if it gets minimum of I don't know about a 1,100,000 votes, then the government has to introduce the bill in parliament and discuss it. So if you have something similar in India, then citizens will feel empowered, and people who know about these things, see, by and large, people are not even aware of why these heat waves are happening, why we're having a habitat collapse, why we have water crisis, what are the wrong policies that were followed, what are the right policies that have to be adopted, why is farming suffering, how it should shift to natural farming. Like Andhra Pradesh is shifting to natural farming because it's more resilient, it improves the environment, and in future there won't be drought situations. So, but who's to bring these into talk at parliament or at local legislative
Absolutely. The
assemblies?
quality
There
of
are a lot of
politicians, the quality of politics is something that Sandeep, you're talking about. Bhavreen, before we wrap, this is of course the last question. I am running short of time on the broadcast. Bhavreen, before we wrap this discussion up, also help us understand if this is a very unholy loop that we're looking at, because on one hand, the politicians know for a fact that despite there being not enough work, not enough long-sighted plans being put into place, people are still going to brave the heat, come out there and vote for them. So do you think all of this entire circle of event kind of pushes the environmental concerns under the carpet? Like the politicians know for a fact that there are issues, emotional issues that they can rake up, which will get in the voters that they want, and the other voters who are actually concerned, who are actually hit by drought, who are actually worried about the heat wave, they stay at home and don't come out and vote, and again their vote bank is not disturbed.
So Ashish, I mean, when you're talking about the the lesser privileged ones, or maybe even the rural, they are anyway. You think they have any escape from the heat wave? That itself is such a thing that we are in that fictitious world, thinking they have to struggle, they have to go out, they have to work. The daily wage workers, I mean, what they are going through, the waste workers, the everyday our municipal workers, they will be suffering this. So I don't think that going to vote is going to make a difference to them, in heat or no heat, them, as far as this lot things. But the elite, of course, always think they can buy everything and they don't need to be anywhere. So I'm not going to even bother commenting on that strata of citizens who are usually ignorant, because air pollution also we've seen, because when we are trying to bring in conversations of clean air or do things, rich things, they can buy everything, while the poor has bigger problems. So even if they're coming, they're targeting at things that in the evening, will the children get food, or will they have, of course, water is a very important aspect, because it's immediate, something that they can see, or clean water. Water is clean or not clean, something that we struggle in Delhi. So it's a matter of believing. The point is that something that the term from my picking up from Sandeep, disillusionment, and what Priya said, one, that voters are exhausted, they're doing this again and again, and now they kind of feel that by not going, it doesn't matter, because they will still be struggling with whatever needs they have. But that's not the way. There always has to be the motivation, there has to be ways of trying to communicate to them, something that Priya was trying to put a point there, so that they demand, and that demand becomes electoral issues. Unless if they don't become electoral issues, they will not be solved. And nothing in the country will get solved, whether it's air, clean air, water, nothing, no environmental, nothing will get solved unless it becomes an electoral issue. And in order for it to become an electoral issue, the citizens will have to demand. So there's, like you said, a huge, it's just going round and round. But yeah, I mean, I just want to, wind up, not to take your time, because this is what it is, and we'll all have to kind of wait and watch, of how people will come, because this is
of
where
course
I think
a very interesting debate that we've had on the broadcast, because all across the board, if you switch into any channel that you're watching right now, all the debates are about the money power, the muscle power, the campaigning, the key candidates, the key constituencies. But again, this is an issue which really is something that dictates the polling percentages. This dictates how elections go. And again, a minuscule factor as it may seem, it is something that really does affect the voters. And again, as we say on Mirror Now, it's you first. And for voters, this again is an issue that we have continued to discuss. Really appreciate you all for taking out your time and joining us on this discussion.